Good morning, friends, schoolmates, colleagues. After many years, I'm returning back to the area of the educational psychology. And under the educational psychology, under the umbrella of counseling and guidance, which I had started as an undergraduate student from 67 to 72 with a double major in psychology and Spanish. And then from 74 to 76, when I got my master's between 74 and 75 as a counseling psychologist in the University of Wisconsin system in Milwaukee. My undergraduate degree, I have it from University of Wisconsin Platteville campus. What was interesting at that particular time of my work is handling students with both academic counseling, guidance, and the psychological, or at times the requiring the counseling from the other segment of the academia. So it on the one side is planning, on the other side is helping them to have the grasp about studying, succeeding in overall the college campus. I have worked with the international students as well as with the time and period in the U.S. when the multicultural educational system was starting to emerging into the system, meaning we have so-called the non-traditional students from the Black student community, the Latinos, and eventually with more the so-called cultural disadvantaged. It was kind of a new terminology coming up into the community in colleges. It was a very interesting time, and because of that, and because as a on-campus counselor, we're on the same campus at UW Platteville, where I have studied 4 years and played all these years as a soccer in the varsity team and become coach and helping out with the team. So I have the multiple roles between a coach, teacher, counselor, and then the overall living experience in the university campus. So all in all, it was a very interesting time because we have this variety of new student bodies, and many of them also, like any freshman, is coming to a new surrounding, a new area. How do they adjust, adapt, and even simple issues like, do you have a real major? Do you have what you want to study? Or, the objectives, career, and all that is a very, very interesting time. Plus my own personal experience when I first started as a freshman, I had very little orientation. I coming from a cross-cultural, I myself was a cross-cultural product, born in Shanghai, China, raised in Cantonese-speaking Hong Kong, Macau, a slight touch of the Portuguese colony. Then eventually, when I turned 14, 1962, I have moved to Brazil, where I finished my junior high school, and I had a wonderful experience and my total enjoyment of the people in Brazil and the culture in Brazil. As a matter of fact, even in the forming of this new direction of the psychology of round and square, in my Portuguese segment, I will speak a lot more about the influence I have from Brazil and also mainly from another psychologist, educator, Paulo Freire. But I will leave that to the other segment, and I will continue on with the experience, the multicultural background, and the language that I have with me, and how that have helped me shaping the format I'm heading into. Why do I call it psychology of round and square? And then I would just want to go to the sets of circumstances very interesting working under pressure. When I say working under pressure, when I was at Milwaukee or UW Milwaukee, I have, at that time, it's called the experimental program in higher education. There are many federally funded programs doing their testing work, experimenting how we can advance these many students who are not coming from who are not from the quote unquote traditional student body. And so at that particular time, we have 12 counselors, advisors in our program. And only 2 of us have our master's degree totally. I mean, when we have our degrees, the other 10 were part of the graduate program. They're graduate students also working as a counselor at the university. We are dealing with a number of the students, which is quite substantial. Among the 12 of us, almost carrying each and every one of us about 600 plus, 68 students. I average out about 60 to 65. But anyway, when I was signed into the program, and my first question was, how are we going to handle the so-called mandatory counseling? Because the student body, the type of student we come from, a very different background, and they may need more than just remedial. And obviously, we can direct them into the tutorial program. I usually send them to the career center so they can have some evaluation other than what they want, what they think they want, and the aptitude test and other kind of counseling can give them an outlook. What is 3 years from now, 4 years from now? So they can have a focus and then some kind of directions. And many of these directions can change, can modified, which I have done previously at UW Platteville at that time. And because the student diversity and the body and the language coming from the federal government that this is a mandatory counseling program, even to my boss, the immediate boss, whatever the mandate is interpretive. And with all this unexpected number of students, and people have to become creative under pressure. I would like to meet the objective to see my students maybe 25 minutes, 30 minutes, if I can budget it to make them meeting with us, a meeting with the counseling staff. From my own way, or from my own with my previous experience at UW Platteville, which what I've done is to make the student have a once a week, 1 hour meeting. Eventually, they turn into a course called the survival course, basically giving the student an orientation about the overall sets of circumstances in college. In today's terms, we can call it academic survival, the logistical steps, how to make it through 4 years, 5 years, and depending on the credit load and the degree the students were taking. In that segment, I have laid out pretty clear that 1 credit survival class is only for the first 4 weeks, and it's 1 credit AOF, basically telling the students, if you don't take the attendance, you don't come to the orientation, the guidance program, then you basically, will have an F. That's almost conditional, but not quite executed in that way. So overall, I had myself 1.5 years and more working with the students and how to stay alive, how to survive in the academic environment. In the meantime, there was also a little bit of the management focus. I was studying at that time that with incoming student coming every fall, 600, 800, the number varies. And then by the spring semester in January, upon the return of the second semester, and there's always a number of loss. We may lose 200 students, we may lose 150. Because the sensitivity of the record keeping, I was not able to get the full collaboration by the registrar office and by the under the academic dean or the vice president of student services. But however, I question the basic deduction as to how many students came in the fall semester, how many have graduated first semester. That's the legitimate losses of the students, not lose, but they graduating with the degree. And then the question coming at that time, how many were transferred or not, or how many got married and leave campus. And then other question coming out at the bottom of a number that I have with me was very much of a puzzle because these other people just come and then left. And I wanted the statistics to know what are these numbers? Are they freshmen? Are they first semester freshmen? Are they sophomore? Anyway, those data were pertinent to me, not to the university, because by those numbers I can go back and look at their midterm grades. And because I was working in the counseling center and working at with the purpose of the counseling, I asked my mission is to retain students and make sure they have a sound academic practice, just attending schools. So the time management, they're coming into the focus, the objectives of the school and my mission, and then we help the students to what do they want to do? What is their major? Is there what their major is real? Many raise their hand, I want to be doctor, I want to be engineer. Eventually halfway or a third way of the semester, the ideas have changed when they found the challenges of the courses. I myself, for one, carry 18 credits DNF, which had kept my grade point average below 3 points, which would become an impediment when I want to go to graduate school. And these are the personal experience, and by helping students defining their objectives, what is real, what is authentic, what is congruent, or what is their the real focus. So instead of asking what they're majoring in, basically is to guide them to what do you want to do? What is 4 years from now? What is your outlook? What is your view, your role view, and what are the options? So that particular year and a half of my graduate studies from 74 to 75 and coming to 76, I have developed this guidance program. In fact, I love the term counseling and guidance. Later on, I will tell why I was seeking a doctoral program in the psychology within the field of educational psychology, and then specifically about counseling and guidance. And basically, I'm not put the power into the professionals, myself or my colleagues, but I think to guide the students is to looking into what their resources, how they know, what they know about their own resources, what they really want versus what the parents want or the society want. Being a doctor, being an engineer, being whatever field that seems to be bringing in high income or bringing good income or stable income. So that kind of a goal evaluation, personal assessment is very mechanical. Were established because first thing I do, as I did it myself, I direct them to the career center. So why are you directing students coming from counseling center instead you're going to do the career? Because with that department, they can have more questions raised about the future, about what is the trend, what is the 4 years from now, 3 years from now, what can they have with their major study, and so that's one of the way to guide the student to use the campus resources. Indeed, they have academic counselor supposedly guiding the student in a major area. Then you have the counseling center. You have the career center. All in all, to put them to become more assertive by reminding them that you are paying for your education. If you can use any extra resources and to learn more about yourself, about the school environment. So this environment thing becoming, I have written now the program called Cultural Spheres. Just like I coming into from China to Brazil, from Brazil to US, I have stepped into three major obvious cultural zones, and those are spheres. But within that one particular sphere that I have personal experience, living in the city, Sao Paulo at that time is like 12, 14 million. And I had my own personal preference going to a small town, going back to a Catholic school, what I have attended in Macau called the Salesians John Bosco. And I've enjoyed my living experience tremendously, where I met my young friends 24/7. We live together, we play balls together, we share the dormitory, we share the shower rooms, we play in a band, we serve mass, we sung in Latin and Greek. So the 2.5 years of coexistence on that cultural zone of a town no more than 25, 30,000 people, I got to engage more than just the average contact, going to school and home and maybe going to the other sports centers or clubs and coming home. So in the same thing as at Platteville is a rural area. Now you have this urban minorities, be that Hispanic, blacks, or foreign students, then you are trying to have them fit or trying to find a way, what is the culture in the small town? It may not seem important to most people, but maybe because this awareness I have from the multicultural background, which I will repeat a little bit, I've become extremely aware what sphere am I in. Because in the community in Sao Paulo, we have English-speaking Chinese students going to American schools and English schools, which I can speak English, so I share with that. And then we're into the Brazilian schooling system, which we speak Portuguese amongst us. And then at home, there is another linguistic group speaking to my mom in Cantonese, which is the mother tongue. And then with any other Chinese coming to our social environment, we have to speak Mandarin. And also it's not a Mandarin, what they call 普通话 today in China, but some speaking with a Sichuan dialect, and the other one speaking with a Toisan, one of the dominant ethnic groups in the U.S. and in the Americas in general. So you end up become very aware of the zone that you're stepping into. And many times I step into a zone when my father speaking French with his French colleagues, Chinese, ethnic Chinese from Thailand, from Burma, and their spouses, which they're French ethnic groups. So while they're engaged, they speak French. When they're coming to with us, we're switching into Portuguese or Chinese. So this linguistic zone and the cultural zone, I have always been very aware of I call it the cultural sphere. So some one way or another in this development of my counseling approach to my students, and I have used quite frequently of the cultural spheres, which is another point leading me into back to the psychology round and square. In this particular time, also from 67 to 72, I have a psychology major. I had read through many of the psychology from the early days of the phrenology, from the hypnosis, mesmerism, to coming to the full impact of the Sigmund Freud or the Freudian psychology or psychoanalysis. So with that with that particular, in this particular learning period, during my master's programs, in the one semester, we have one course totally focused on the work of the transactional analysis by Eric Burns. I have found it very interesting, as you will see in some of the diagrams. Immediately, I have found that from the written languages, and I can imagine, well, we all can imagine how difficult the language of psychology by psychoanalysis, broadening by Sigmund Freud in Austria and Vienna, and from German to English, and in between, even Freud himself already have a cross-cultural experience by citing all his samples, symptoms, Oedipus complex, Electra complex, based on a Greek mythology or a part of the history of the Greek model. So Freud have spoken about ego, id, or the biological, the desire, food, hunger, eventually where he developed his psychosexual dynamics. And then on top of it, the superego, which is about culture. So I have some idea about the Freudian psychology, with some question mark or some obscurity because the language, because both English and then the German text. But when it comes to transactional analysis, I really found a way of awakening when I saw the dynamics. The transactional analysis was written very clearly. And it's very interesting. I find Eric Berne had simplified the language into also the three spheres, which is the parent, the adult, and then the child. I think learning is what is interesting. The symbolism, the three spheres, when you're talking about, in the graphic here, you will see that I'm okay, you're okay, we're both around. I'm okay, you're not okay, where I have improvised with the square. And then I am not okay, you're okay. And then at the fourth element, it's that I'm not okay, you're not okay. So we're pointing finger at each other. Well, that from the square, half the square is a triangle. A triangle can be the sphere. And the sphere can be a form and a shape that shows antagonism, disagreement, opposition, or to even argument, fights. And that baby concept, the idea of the round and square has started. It all has started with the transactional analysis. Of course, I was just a poor graduate student. I called the office. I wrote to the office of the Eric Burns in Carmel in San Francisco area, and trying ever so eagerly to say, wait a minute, I have something here. I think we can modify those sets of spheres with the square and with the triangle. Okay, as you shall see in the presentation here, very quickly. Today we have all the emojis, all the expressions. We have all the richer contents. And again, I'm explaining now. I'm coming out again to emphasize what I have learned, what I have installed in 75, 76, and then the concept of the round and square have already been established. The triangle is merely an offshoot of the square. But what is more interesting, I call this communication dynamics. And from the communication dynamics, I observe the interaction between myself and the students. In the meantime, when I developed the communication analytica. I call it analytica because the pressure of time to 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 work with my students for their academic well-being, their social, psychological well-being. Well, that's part of my duty. I don't put psychology into everything into psychology, but it's all in all. How are you doing? How are you? How much time can you spend with me? What do you need in your time? Well, I never realized in their cultural sphere, I have students coming in as single parents. Other than the ordinary going to classes with the 15 credit or 12 credits, then you're factoring into the time, travel, study. I break down all the numbers for the students. I start to think about, how important their time in their cultural sphere. These students have to see their social worker. Some of the students will also have to see their parole, the parole officer that I was gonna. Oh, okay. The school, because of a reason for confidentiality, those are not being recorded. I only discover upon my interaction with my students. So all of a sudden, these students, they are in a city, they're no longer on the college campus. They will have to drive, they have to ride a bus. So from all this new cultural, I call it nuances because I did not have those experiences before. The time and the pressure to work with the students for their academic performances, along with a good status, maybe try my best to have them a very good posture, a very good grasp with their well-being. Well, let's go back to very simple, the study of psychology and what is in the basic premises when we're studying psychology is very simple. Okay, anxiety and hysteria. That's basically what Sigmund Freud had started at his time in this period and his cultural sphere. Most of the women were housebound. They don't have other options unlike the men who have the way of living, their professional lives, and also the social ambience, which is we can eventually, I will go into it in a deeper degree, but in that particular time and point, based on my analysis, if you are a woman, you are childless, you don't have the social status, you don't have the entourage or your parents or your family or the servant. In that particular setting, a woman become very isolated. With isolation, alienation, and anxiety, and then eventually what anxiety can lead to, so-called hysteria. Maybe that's one of my early grasp of the purpose and the reason to study psychology is all about the collective well-being of us, a collective well-being, yes, about myself, about my relations and friends, family, and no different than what I was trying to do with the students. Bingo! When this sets of square, round, and triangle came up, I have used very frequently with my students. And guess what? They grasp almost immediately. Okay, how you and your family or your mom or your dad or your spouse. Good, great, terrific. No, I'm not sure. That's great. But in fact, with the graphic that we have now, those color can be changed. I use the green and go from green to yellow to orange and red. Well, that's usually the line. There's still other purples and slight blue in the 7 colors in Chinese. That is there's a blue, a light blue to green. But so far, I only want to use from the green to the red, and the other color can be reserved for other applications. But all in all, when I started to working with my students, and when I become a little bit more at ease with the students, the first stage of the just like first time you're meeting a person, how can you open up? When do you want to open up? You know, I have already been playing tennis for a long time, so I usually have a couple very hang around the old balls. You know, I bang against the wall, I throw against the wall, I play with the bouncing the ball, just keep my own anxiety more leveled. But more so, also at the time that we have an open door policy um, for all kinds of reasons and purposes, and to be cautious when you're having in the room with a student. Um, but at any rate, I found out, funny enough, that ball, the tennis ball, becoming a part of the early, um, maybe subconsciously, have given me the indication. Um, I did, I've done it deliberately or playfully. I drop the ball and say, "Would you mind send it to me?" So instead of giving it to me, I throw it to me. On the transitioning of the ball, using the ball as a medium, I managed to break ice more successfully than just a cold sit down with the books and holding the jacket, holding the book tight. And what I was trying to do is to make them as relaxed as possible. Okay, so at this time and moment, at this stage, what I'm coming back after almost 50 years, but I have always incorporated my last 45 years professional business, which has nothing to do with the academia, but a lot to do with the human psychology and the people's human game being play. Part of the transaction analysis here with Eric Byrne is his book he wrote, Games People Play. And that was very interesting. Unfortunately, Dr. Byrne died very young, not too long after my intention to meet him, by sharing that, hey, I can change your rounds with the shapes of square and the shapes of triangle, can make the communications more dynamic. This, I call it communication dynamics. It's not just for me. It's not a one-sided analysis, but is a shared experience. Where are you at? Where am I at? Are we okay? Are you okay? You're not feeling good. Okay? How bad is it? So with the graphics today, you can make the color more dense, less intense, lighter, and the movement. So the square, when it contours into an argument, hostility, that's where the triangle comes. But you will notice on what I have put in here, I always leave the green in the back. That means we still have the good nature in us. At this time, maybe you and I are arguing, I raise my voice, I'm calling names and whatever, but we can always retreat back to our original posture. Well, in this particular segment, I hope I have conveyed some messages. There's a series of pictures that I will go through with the diagrams as I speak.